Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have another wonderful guest from the Pacific Northwest. We have Chris from Washington State. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm good, Aaron. I'm good, man. Can't be better. So how about you?
Doing well, doing well. I know we've been talking over the past few weeks, and it's great to finally link up with you and have you on the show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited.
Yes, sir, Chris. So for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. Living in Seattle, doing real estate investing full time. And just to kind of a quick little backstory, I grew up in Southwest Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan, to be more specific. And grew up with my mom raising my sister and I single handedly, which was challenging. But I look back and there's a lot of awesome lessons and things learned. Um, yeah, went to Western Michigan, got my degree in sales. And then after that, I moved out to California to chase the dream and sold payroll for about a year. And then I got into medical sales pretty quick and did medical sales really up until last October when I left my job full time for real estate. Fast forward present day, got a daughter. She's going on 4 years old. I've got a stepson going on 7. The lady's in law school right now. She's wrapping up in December, and we're up here in Seattle, like I said. So just it's crazy, it's fun, and we're just hustling and bustling.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a heck of a journey, I guess, from Kalamazoo to California to Washington now, and it sounds like you have some new plans in the future too, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're shipping out to North Carolina in February for a few different reasons, closer to the real estate projects, quality of life. I'm a Midwest guy, and I really like the whole South Midwest kind of values. We'll be out there in February.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just curious, in terms of, growing up in Kalamazoo, when you were a kid, did you ever see yourself working in real estate or, what kind of sparked your interest in the industry?
Great question. Yes and no. So I would say more no, but I was always intrigued by real estate. I can remember being in high school and I would see all these new strip malls go up. And I was always so intrigued by who owned these buildings or who built these buildings. I didn't really care so much about what stores were going in there. I just wanted to know, like, yeah, who's building these. So I've always been intrigued by it. I've always loved big, beautiful homes and skyscrapers. I was 2 hours from Detroit and Chicago. And so it, it was always on my mind, especially when I got out to California and you see the houses out there and the real estate out there. I had a buddy who ran or still does run a realtor's office in Newport Beach, and he's the one that kind of got me turned on to it. He's like, "Hey, look, man, you could sell a couple homes a year, make some extra money." So I was kind of under the impression that, oh yeah, I'll just go get my real estate license and sell a couple homes, and it's not what I wanted to do, but ultimately it led me down the path of exploring more real estate, and here I am present day. So yeah, it's always been something I've loved for sure. Even now, I really don't even feel like I have a job sometimes. So
Yeah, no, I always love hearing things like that because it always kind of sounds like those early memories, from when you're a kid and, kind of maybe the career interests you have, it can really it can really grow into something big like where you're at now.
absolutely, yeah. Everybody always hears about real estate, right? Everyone buys their first home. Everyone's always intrigued by skyscrapers and really cool looking houses. They have tons of TV shows, and so I feel like everyone's exposed to it, but then there's just those certain people that really latch onto it and really monetize it. So
Yeah, no, what seems unique about, kind of your perspective from a young age, Chris, was that, when people hear real estate, they think, transactions between, buying and selling a home. Whereas for you from a young age, you were wondering, hey, who's the owner of this property, right? Whereas it seems like most little
yeah,
kids wouldn't think that way.
yes, 100%, 100%. Same with like apartments and stuff. I'm like, obviously people don't own their apartments. So who's running and operating this stuff? It was really interesting to me.
Yeah,
So
definitely. So it sounds like you had those questions as a kid. You had your friend who ran that realtor office. And I'm curious as well. When you mentioned how maybe homes weren't your thing, what did you not like about that facet of the industry?
I think I think first and foremost, and I don't say this because I feel like this carries any weight. This was just kind of my mindset on it, but there was just so many people that become brokers And when I had moved up, so when I really started exploring real estate, I had moved up to Seattle, and the market up here has been booming forever. Especially when I moved up here, it really started to escalate. And so I just felt like everybody had their license, and I was also doing medical sales, which, and supporting the family, which did take time. And so for me, I was like, I'm going to really have to dive into this thing full time. This whole part-time real estate agent, it's just not really my style. I want to be all in. I'm competing against other people that do this for a living. And so I just don't think that the passion to be a broker and try to chase buyers and sellers, so to speak, matched up with me, wanting to leave my job enough in medical sales. Because I mean, admittedly, I had a really well-paying job. I enjoyed working in the OR. I wore scrubs every day. It was a fun job. And so I think it was more of a personal thing. And I just knew, I was just really listening to my gut. I just knew deep down, I'm like, I don't want to broker, but I know I want to do real estate. I know I want to own stuff. So how can I really get out of the rat race or get out of the W-2, but do more of the real estate investing?
Yeah, Chris, I'm always fascinated by stories like this because, you're in the OR, you're wearing scrubs every day. You have a nice position, maybe you're comfy, you have that security there, you're making money. It would be easy just to stay complacent and stay in that role. What made you really, was there any sort of aha moment when you said, hey, I got to jump now? Or
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. I was actually thinking about this earlier today. So I had the best year I've ever had in 2019 in my sales career. And believe it or not, that was really the moment that I realized I didn't want to do this and I needed to get out of it. I had known a few years prior that I want to do this full time. Even my manager would sit me down. He's like, hey, what are your 5-year goals? Do you want to be a manager? And I was like, no, I like being a rep. And so when I made that kind of money, I took a step back and I thought, okay, I had a really good year, a blowout year. I was 142% to quota. And this is the money I made. So this is my ceiling. This is kind of my cap. And yes, I can go start diversifying and doing other things. But for me personally, it almost kind of depressed me that was my cap. And so that was when the light bulb went off. And I thought, okay, I need to do something. I just had the best year I've ever had. Yeah, there's potential to make a little bit more, but it just didn't align with my goals. So
yeah, definitely. And, I'm curious, when you say it didn't align with your goals, I mean, was it more so the financial goals? You kind of looked in the mirror and said, hey, this is the ceiling, or was it maybe something more intrinsic in you that, maybe you had more gas in the tank? Or
definitely both, more the latter. I didn't realize how much purpose I was lacking until I found real estate investing. Of course, there was the financial perspective to it. I have really big goals. I really do. I have a 10x kind of Grant Cardone mindset. I don't really think $1 million a year is a lot of money, so to speak, when you can drop, $750,000 in medical bills in, 8 weeks, like what happened to me when I got into a motorcycle accident. So thinking bigger, but being at the position I was in, it didn't align. But then I would say even more importantly, it was the lack of purpose for sure. I really wanted to build something. I've hired a couple of people now, and I really enjoy providing that for people, getting into the leadership and really just building my own baby, having my own business and being the man not working for them. So definitely a purpose thing.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, it seems like it's been an interesting journey, from Michigan to California, now to Washington State. And I'm curious when did that motorcycle accident happen? How did that play into, maybe where you're at now?
So the motorcycle accident was in 2015. I was in Southern California. Just bought my dream bike, a Ducati Panigale sports bike. Had it for about a month, and I had an SUV pull out in front of me. Now the police report said I was going between 75 and 85. I think I hit the brakes before the impact, which kind of threw my bike up, threw me over the front passenger fender of the car. And I mean, by the grace of God, I have no idea how I survived, to be honest with you. I had 9 total surgeries. I broke my pelvis, my left arm. I had lacerations on my face, but I remember, waking up on the intersection. I remember going to the hospital. I wasn't really concussed. I had a nice helmet, but it was split all the way down the front. And so going through something like that, where you're sitting there and you're just telling yourself not to really fall asleep because you don't know what's going to happen. And being in medical sales and being in surgeries, of course I'm wondering, do I have internal bleeding? What's going on? And so when you have your life kind of flash before your eyes like that, you just have a perspective that's really hard to explain. And you really understand how fast it can all be taken from you. And so I was about a month into this really cool job. I was selling robotic surgery for Intuitive, the Da Vinci robot. And I went through all the motions, Aaron, like the anger, why me? But then I kind of stopped and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like I survived this. I'm going to make a full recovery. I had to learn how to walk again. Pretty quick process though. And I look back on it and it's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. I mean, there's really not a whole lot that can be thrown my way that I can't handle. And so, because of going through something like that. So I look back on it and I wouldn't change it for a thing. I'm still on a bike. I actually have the exact same motorcycle now, a Ducati Panigale. I didn't let the fear get a hold of me. I didn't let the negative emotions and thoughts, run wild in my head. And I had a lot of support around me, professionally and personally. And just, yeah, it's been incredible. It really has. So I still think about it all the time. And I have the scars every day to remind me. So.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's an incredible story. And, amongst all of that adversity, what I'm really impressed with is kind of it almost sounds like there was a shift in your mindset or some sort of psychological change, you transitioning from the why me to the why not me, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I appreciate you saying that, man. It's when I got back and, because I went to Michigan to recover, I was with my family. And when I got back out to California and started working, a lot of the doctors I worked with, a lot of my friends, they were telling me, they were like, you just seem different. Like, and I was a pretty wild kid. I was I was 25, I was going out quite a bit, single, whatever. And it just changed the scope for me. It just kind of slowed things down. And I still had that urgency to want to be successful and be something more, but it just really slowed things down and really made me value certain things in life that I didn't value before. And then also start to kind of devalue the things that I was valuing.
Right. No, I find these stories so interesting, not only when it happens to people directly, but also, maybe when a loved one has a near-death experience, it's almost like you're experiencing the fragility of life alongside them,
Yes. Yep. I agree.
No, so wow, that's a lot there to unpack. So I guess you had that bad accident, then you went to Michigan and you eventually came back to California. And then you mentioned how there were, a few people saying, hey, you're a bit different. What else got clear for you? Was it more so your career goals, or what really got clear?
I think I was looking more internally on myself than I ever have, because going through something like that, even something as down to on a micro scale is, being in that hospital by myself. I mean, my brother was there for the first week, which is incredible. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, but he had to get back to work. He went to my apartment or my condo to sleep. And when you're laying there at night and you're just completely broken, you really start to look inside, and you have to. And so for me, it was really the beginning of a journey to just find more of myself and to ask myself, what's my purpose? And I think that's what ultimately led to, me getting more into real estate and getting out of medical sales and realized I wanted to do more, is because I knew that I was lacking a purpose. Like I was like, there's got to be more to life than just going out on weekends, working this job, whatever. And, ironically enough, that's when I had my daughter, and, she came by surprise. I mean, admittedly, she wasn't planned. And again, that was another just unbelievable blessing that, ultimately led me to attract my life partner, who I'm with now. I'm still good friends with my daughter's mom. Like all these things that were so kind of unconventional happened to me, but they were so amazing for my growth. And yeah, it's hard to put into words sometimes, but I would say the internal focus on myself is really what changed the most.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, really amongst all the adversity, it kind of seems like you're just putting one foot in front of the other, and then things just kind of start happening and they're all pieced together, and here you are, right?
Yes, absolutely. And one thing I'll say too, Aaron, is, obviously when you go through the struggle, that's where the growth happens, right? it's easy to have wins, but it's how you handle the losses, how you handle the L's. And so for me, I look back and I'm like, okay, I've had enough mistakes by being a dumbass, the motorcycle accident, certain things in my life that I invited into my life that weren't really productive, but it still led me to understand that the growth comes from the struggle and the pain. So I'm all about making things as hard as possible in a productive manner, right? So that's what really helped me out. And now it's almost like when I get too comfortable or there's too many wins or there's like kind of too much going on and on the good side, it's like, yes, be grateful, chase that. But it's like, okay, I got to make things a little harder now. I got to push my limits with the business or my body or whatever. So
right.
it's
No,
been fun.
definitely. So, I'm curious as well, you rehab from the accident, you're kind of gaining your momentum, and then, you have, you take that leap of faith, really getting out of medical sales into real estate. What was kind of the beginning of, I guess, your new real estate journey?
So getting up here to Seattle in 2017, I got my license. I did the brokerage thing for, I'd say, 4 to 6 months and realized I couldn't do both. And then I actually went to a Tony Robbins event with my girlfriend and I met a designated broker on the commercial side. And he started talking to me about getting in on the commercial side. So I got back, I got introduced to some people. I started working with a couple of younger commercial multifamily brokers doing some cold calling. And that's when I started to really talk with investors and got more into, multifamily, understanding cap rates and all this stuff. And the wheels just kind of started to turn. And I was like, okay, I'm calling on these people that own all these buildings. But again, I'm still curious, like, how did they get to own these buildings? And so fast forward to 2020. So last year when COVID hit, of course I couldn't get into the hospitals. So we were sitting at home. I read a couple of real estate investing books. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad at this point, but that was kind of more of the what. But then when I read these real estate investing books, that was when kind of the how, the light bulb went off. I first learned about burring, buying the distressed properties, refinancing out of them. And I thought, okay, this is really freaking cool. You can be into these properties with no money, got tenants paying your mortgage down, got appreciation, all these, beautiful tax shelters and everything like that. But how can I make actual money to get out of the W-2? So that's when flipping and wholesaling came into play. At first it was flipping. And that's when I decided I'm going to flip houses. It was just that gut kind of instinct that I had been fighting with all the brokerage stuff. And it was complete opposite. It felt so natural. It felt so right. I knew I wanted to do it. I ended up joining a mastermind in October of 2020, or I'm sorry. Yeah, October. And that's when I found out more about wholesaling. And at this point I had already been about halfway through my first flip. And it's kind of crazy, but I left my job halfway through my first flip. I hadn't seen a dime in my real estate business. And I just thought, you know what? I'm so freaking, this is me personally, not attacking the industry or the company, but I'm so miserable at my job that I have to do this. And I had the support, I was set up financially to take care of the family if things went south. And that was it, man. I just pulled the trigger last October and went all in. So here I am. Burn the boats.
Burn the boats. That's a beautiful thing too, because you could have gone through that flip, in the misery of your job, right? And maybe, it almost kind of makes you think, what would have happened if I wouldn't have jumped, right?
Yes, 100%. And we all hear it, Aaron. We all hear everybody gets older and they look back and, the things they regret are the things they didn't try. And you only can hear that so many times before you actually got to look at your own life and realize, like, I'm going to be this person saying this if I don't try these things. And so the worst thing that's going to happen is, my business is going to fail and I'm going to go back to an industry that I'm already doing pretty well at and I can get another job. Even that wasn't an option for me, but that's an absolute worst come to worst if I needed to feed my family. And so you just kind of go to the extreme and then you become okay with that. And then you just work backwards and you're like, yeah, of course I'm going to leave, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, completely. And you even said it yourself, you also have that, you were not only financially supported, through your hard work to get you through that flip and that transition, but you also mentioned how your girlfriend went with you to the Tony Robbins conference, right? And
yep.
It seems like a nice thing when you have a partner who's also right there with you, also on board with your endeavors.
1,000%. I cannot agree more. She's in law school for real estate. She sat me down about a year into our relationship and she said, hey, listen, I want to dedicate, my law school to your dream and our dream. And I want to do this real estate thing. And it was just, man, Aaron, it was on and upwards from there. And this was probably about 8 to 10 months before the real estate investing and all that. So this was like during the brokerage time when she was like, I want to support this. And everything just kind of worked out. And then it got to the point where she was almost getting more frustrated that I wasn't leaving my job. And she's like, you just need to leave. Like, you need to just do this. We're going to make this work. And so I think without that, I ultimately think I still would have left, but maybe not as soon, or maybe not with that fire,
Yeah, no, definitely. We all need, myself included, obviously, but, we all need a little nudge every now and then, right?
1000%. Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So, you have that support system, you do your first flip, what's next? What comes after that?
Yeah. So, leaving my job, giving up all the company perks, I'm waking up every day with fear, just, I need to make calls, I need to make contacts. And so I would say around May, prior to leaving my job, I was really hammering my market, calling agents, contractors, property managers, just getting everybody lined up. I was really focused on not spending too much time, sitting on the sidelines. So that's why I wanted to get started on a flip. And so about halfway through that first one, I realized it was going to be kind of a shit show in some regards. Like, my accounting wasn't as good as it could have been. I made some mistakes on the flip. I understood that going into it. And so I was just, putting it out there on social media, what I was doing. I was talking to people who may want to invest, people that wanted to, buy into what I was doing. And so I made it a point, and I had KPIs that I was tracking early on around how many networking calls I was having, how many, people I was talking to, what kind of calls were they? And so I was really tracking everything to make sure that I was growing. And, I realized when I joined this mastermind, I'm like, okay, these flips are really nice and it's going to be an active income, but the payday is not for, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And so wholesaling came into the picture. And that's when I partnered up with a guy in my mastermind, and we actually just separated, still good friends, just went our own separate ways for the betterment of our businesses. But we did 6 deals together, and we were averaging about 10 to 15K a wholesale deal. And I thought, okay, this, not only can I go direct to source on my deals, and if I want to flip them, I can flip them, but now I can wholesale them and be kind of in and out in 3, 4, 5 weeks. So, from October, November, December, January, it was just flipping and wholesaling. And then around March, as of like a few months ago, I had a development deal come across my desk, and that's a whole other can of worms. But now I'm doing a development deal, building 27 condos, luxury condos with retail space. So it's pretty surreal. But that all came from just networking. I got a high net worth individual in my corner who, bought me some flips. I presented the development deal, and he took to it. So now here I am doing flipping, wholesaling, and a development deal.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how all that kind of began with, not only supportive team with you, but also, that leap of faith. You get into the flip, and then you find out, hey, the wholesaling is kind of feeding this and kind of adding fuel to the fire. And then out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but through the hard work, you get something like a development deal.
Yeah, no, and it felt like it was out of nowhere, Aaron. I mean, my agent, one of the agents I work with, called me, and she was like, hey, do you want to check this out? And I was like, well, I had the mindset, say yes to everything. So I'm like, yeah, of course, I'll check it out. And one thing led to another. And I mean, this was a matter of 1 week that I got the deal, I presented it, and there was another private equity firm that was about to bring an offer to the table. And I just pushed the urgency on my financial partner. And we did it. So I wouldn't say that's obviously very common, but it did come from networking, putting myself out there, being aggressive, being passionate about what I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm very passionate. I'm going to dedicate myself, and I'm going to be successful. And I think if people sense that in you, I almost think that carries more weight than the knowledge, because you can learn all the ins and outs to stuff, So
yeah, definitely. Again, it sounds like it's another story of, just putting one foot in front of the other. And, it's interesting as well, is that in a way, it kind of seems like, the same principles apply doing the flip to doing a new build. I mean, sure, there are differences, but could you maybe kind of describe, what else you have to think of transitioning from flipping to doing development?
Yeah. So, with developments, you're going to have a lot more involvement with the city. There might even be some political to it. There's a public hearing that people can attend. You've got to look at, potential rezoning. So if a property is zoned residential and you want to go commercial as an example. So there's just other people that are going to be involved that aren't necessarily involved with flips. I mean, of course you got to pull permits and stuff with flips, but and I'm still going through this process, but I think it's making sure that all the major boxes are checked. So, looking at like the legal route, getting with a good attorney and having that box checked, and then making sure that you have an accountant or somebody that's going to help you with your accounting and your bookkeeping. And then you work with the architect, and they're the ones that are going to design the whole thing. And then you have the construction company that comes in and they work with the architect, and they're providing the quotes and how they're going to build this thing out. So there's just a lot of people to be in touch with. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I guess there's probably some similarities, maybe with flipping, on a basic level, right? You have your purchase and the amount of work you're putting into, and then, what you want to sell it for. But development, it kind of seems like you're almost the maestro to the orchestra, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, you're making sure that everything's just in a row. I mean, you got to be touching on all these different people, because not everybody that's involved in this deal is going to be talking to each other. I mean, more times than not, they're not. So yeah, exactly. You're the developer. This is your project. You've got to make sure that you're orchestrating everything to get done, And so it's been fun. It's been challenging already, but it's something that I learn every day. I have some awesome people in my corner, my real estate agent, my architect, my partner. It's been awesome. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it sounds more region specific, right? Because maybe there's certain building codes or laws to follow, or kind of different nuances between, different markets.
Yes, exactly. With the market that I'm doing these condos in, it's a somewhat underdeveloped market when it comes to density. So going to the city to apply for, a 5-story building because the norm is 3, that doesn't happen in Seattle, where they're building, 40, 50 unit or level buildings, you know what I mean? So it really does depend on where you're at, what you're doing. Some areas are going to be late adopters. And so you really got to work with the market and do the market research and look at everything and work with the city, get their approval. We actually have on July 7th, we have our variance meeting to get that higher level approved. And so prior to that, we've had calls with the city saying, hey, what do you think of this? We really want to maximize this space. Of course, my job is to push it to the maximum. So I want to go as high as we can go. But then the city's kind of the ones that say, okay, let's kind of pump the brakes. We really like this. We got to change this. And so it's just, it's working with your market and making sure that you're really contributing to your market. And in my eyes, setting precedent. I don't want to do the norm. I want to try to set precedent. So.
Yes, sir, definitely. And it's always great to hear that someone's pushing the envelope, right? Because if you're going to think, you may as well think big.
Exactly, man. 10x.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm curious, kind of you kind of mentioned the different pieces that are in play when you're doing a development. You'd also mentioned how it was there were luxury condos, but did you say there's a retail component to it?
Yes. Yep. We're doing retail space on the whole bottom floor, and then there's going to be parking as well, a parking garage. So that'll be part of that first level. But we're acquiring a bar, and it's a pretty historic bar in the area. So we're going to get a lot of pushback on taking this thing down, but that's part of what we want to bring back. And so, this is a more of a campus project. It makes sense. And that's even another thing, Aaron, too. Like, I haven't done anything on the retail side, but again, it's, say yes, figure it out later. And so that's what the city wants. They want some retail space, whether we lease it out, whether we sell it off, we're still trying to figure that out. But, at the end of the day, it's, like I said, it's just say yes and roll with it. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you've spoken a bit about, flipping, the wholesaling, kind of feeding the fire here, and then you finding this development deal. What other deals are you looking for? Maybe someone's listening, they're looking to partner up, or what services are you offering, and what are you looking for?
Good question. Yeah. So right now I'm doing four flips, and I'm bringing on another three. So I'll be doing 7 projects. I'm always looking to put people's money to work. I'm just a big fan of how many people can be fed through a real estate deal. So I love bringing the listing to the agent, the work to the contractors. I love bringing the private investor in, growing their money, getting them a return that's healthy for them. So I would say anyone looking to invest in a flip, if they also want to learn a little bit more about flipping as well, they can, tag along and see what I'm doing. I would say that's probably the bulk of it, Aaron. Maybe on the wholesaling side, if somebody wants to look to get into wholesaling, I'm looking to expand that as well. And so if you guys, if anyone's listening to this and you have a sales background and you want to look to, either do something on the side or maybe do something more virtual in a different market, that's always an option too, because I'm looking for some salespeople to network with and see about growing this wholesaling leg. So.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. Well, is there anything else that you haven't said thus far that you'd really just, like to hammer home for us?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Aaron, is if anyone's listening to this, and even if it's not real estate, if there's something in the back of your mind that you want to do, it's so cliche, but you just have to do it. I mean, you've got to pull the trigger on this stuff, because I was so damn scared to leave my job because I was making good money. I'm supporting a family. And, admittedly, I mean, my income obviously, it kind of took a drop because I'm starting a new business. I'm not getting those consistent paychecks. And obviously the goal is you take a small drop and then you climb higher than where you were at before. And I think even during those times where I was stressed out financially, I'm happier than I've ever been. And I work harder than I've ever worked. I'm more passionate than I've ever been. And I'm truly just more fulfilled within myself, my family, my professional career, and the messages I get from people that it radiates to. It just in a nutshell, man, life is just way too damn short not to do what you want to do. I mean, we've all seen how crazy this world is the last 18 months. And so if there's something that you love and you want to monetize it, what are you waiting for? Like literally, what are you waiting for? So you never know when your day is going to come. My day's almost come. And that's really the biggest thing I would hammer home, man, is just do it. That Nike mentality.
That Nike mentality, that definitely needs to be said, especially, maybe people have spent a bit of time, to themselves in seclusion, maybe the past 18 months, or, maybe they're going through a tough time, and it's a good message for people to hear.
Yes, absolutely, man. And one other quick thing I'll allude to, and I don't want to get political here, but, from my experience, everything's a domino effect, right? So everything starts first within yourself, your mental health, your physical health. So the system is set up to dumb people down. Fast food is everywhere. Gyms closed down during COVID. The educational system keeps you in a box. It's meant to dumb you down. And so the first thing that you got to do is look internally, get healthy within yourself, mentally, physically, get that energy, really figure it out, what it is, what you want to do, what makes you, tick, what drives you. And, just put in the work. And it really is a revolving cycle. The harder you work, the more you're going to win, the more confident you're going to become, the more you're going to want to strive to be even healthier. And it's just this momentum that happens. And so I think COVID has really shown everybody that, a lot of the mainstream media, a lot of the stuff going on right now, it's just kind of meant to dumb people down and slow people down. And I think, we need to all look a little bit deeper within ourselves and start kicking ass and taking more names within ourselves. So.
Yeah, heck yeah. I really like that, and that's, if anything, these past 18 months have been a huge wake up call, a huge call to action to go and, to go and do something.
Yep. Cannot agree more, my man.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. Well, maybe someone's listening, maybe they're, in Washington State, maybe they're in another part of the country, or they just want to get in touch with you. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on all social media platforms. Chris Gormley. My handle on Instagram and Facebook is CGorm, so CGORM 12. And you can also find my Business Network Ventures group on Facebook and Instagram as well. So, reach out to me, DM me. I don't have some huge following. I like to get back to people. I like to network with people. So if anyone, if you guys are local, if you have any questions about real estate, mindset, whatever it is. I'm all about, giving where I can and providing value. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. We've covered a lot of ground talking a bit about, growing up in Michigan, coming down to California, a bit of adversity along the way, making your way to Washington, and, kind of frankly, your inspiring journey along the way of not only overcoming adversity on a personal level, but also scaling up in the real estate business, right? So going from flipping to the wholesaling to now development.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, man. I really do. I try to inspire and just, take all the trials and tribulations I've had and put them out there for people to see, as well as the wins and successes. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. No, it's definitely an inspiring message for everyone, and it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. Thanks for having me on. And, anyone who's listening to this, I really appreciate you guys listening. And, like I said, just kick ass and take names. So
Kick ass and take names. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris. Talk to you later.
Thank you, man. Take care.